Hey everyone, so the question is, how to be more consistent when hitting your lines? Basically how to aim and how to aim accurately more often than not. And the answer to this is actually really simple. Now this isn't easy, but it is very simple. So as I go over this, I want you guys to think about one thing. Think about the game of darts. Okay, darts is the ultimate game of aiming. It's nothing but aiming. When you play darts, I'm not a dart thrower, but I know enough to know this, that this is your technique. That's it. Back, forward, on a line. Now if we were talking about darts, even if you'd never played before, it would be obvious that this would be wrong. This would be wrong. This would be wrong, right? Anything that doesn't take place on that line is wrong. The reason it's wrong is because you don't want to have to find the line mid-throw, right? So, we're going to apply the same thing to throwing the backhand. When you are lining up your shot, you want to create a line the direction you're throwing. Now that's important, the line does not follow the tee pad, the line does not point at the target, it doesn't point to where the disc is going to land even. The line is going to point only the direction the disc is leaving your hand. So whatever direction it's leaving your fingers and heading towards the hole, that's the line you want to be on. Ignore where the tee pad is pointed, ignore the hole. None of that matters. This is why you'll see a top player awkwardly come onto a tee pad from an angle, even though there's plenty of room to run up on the tee pad straight, but if they're trying to hit a line to the side, they're going to come off the tee pad. That's because they're going to be on this line. Now, once I have the line I want to throw, I'm going to put an imaginary line on the ground. Everything is going to take place along that line, or I'm going to attempt to put it on that line. That means that the 3 steps of my run-up, everything up to the last 3 steps is just getting up speed. The backhand takes place in 3 steps. 3 steps of the run-up are going to be 1, 2, 3, and as best as possible, it's not going to be perfect because your foot would actually get in the way, but as best as possible, you want to go down that line. The other part, though, is the disc is also going to start and stay on that line. That means if I was throwing in that direction, it means the disc is here, it goes in a straight line here, it goes back in a straight line here. When I get to this point right here, my arm should be pointing exactly the direction I'm throwing. It's a straight line, and then of course everyone knows to pull the disc straight up to the point of release. Now, when you watch players, especially top players, you'll see a variety of techniques. You'll see players who, on the throw, do not start on that line, and they come back and they find the line. Now, there are people who are so talented and have practiced so much and they're such awesome athletes that they have learned to overcome a flaw in the technique. I'm sorry, it is a flaw, because if somewhere on the run-up you have to find your line, you're adding an extra step. There's zero benefit to not being on the line at some point and finding it. Best case scenario, you get onto the line and you are a tie technique-wise with someone who starts on the line. So at best, you can be as consistent as someone who starts there, but there's no reason to do this. All you have to do is think about starting and staying on this line. Now, when it comes to aiming and finding the line, the way I look at this is, it's really hard to throw a Frisbee. Let's say there's 2 trees out there we're trying to hit the gap, right? It's really hard to throw a Frisbee between these 2 trees. I mean, if I release early, I'm left. If I release late, I'm right. If I don't get the angle right, if I don't get, blah, 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 blah. Hard to find that to aim. What's not hard is if, for example, I pretended that I wasn't even going to throw a disc, and all I had to do was point my arm. Now, of course, I'm facing away from the target, so it's not easy, but all I got to do is point my arm between those 2 trees. Well, that's not that hard, right? If I stepped up and I pointed left of the trees, okay, that's fine. Just next time, I'm right of the trees, okay. With enough practice and consistency, eventually, I should be able to point within a degree or 2 of where I'm going, right? That is aiming. If you reach back at this point right here, and you're pointing where you're throwing, that's where your disc is gonna go. So aiming does not start when you throw. aiming and consistency of hitting the lines starts by creating the line where you're going to throw. Then it involves putting the disc on that line and never leaving that line. And then and only then are you going to point the direction you're throwing. After you do that, the disc is going to go, it's going to hit your line. It's going to be within a couple degrees every single time. The variance will get smaller and smaller and smaller as long as you get onto the line. Now, I said the word line 30 times. I'm being redundant, but it's on purpose because when you're on the course and you're thinking about backhand technique, the one question you want to ask yourself is what I just did on this line? If what you just did takes place on that line, it's correct. If what you did deviates from that line at any point, it's incorrect. Start and stay on the line. That's how you find your line consistency. That's how you aim.